Hello everyone, thank you so much for subscribing. I see the new subscribers that I've gained recently. I cannot thank you enough. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for subscribing, and please subscribe if you have not already. Let's get right into it. Here is a new weekly segment. I'll be doing it every Thursday called That S1, going through the S1s of a brand new IPO company. And today I will be covering F45, which I have seen before live and in the flesh in a local, shopping plaza. It is, I had no idea what it was before, but it is a fitness studio. They blast music and they just go all out training. It is mostly group training exercises, almost like CrossFit, but like completely in groups. So let's start out with some of the facts of the S1. They have 2,247 total franchises sold. So if we go down the list, they started back in 2014 with 84, and they exponentially have just almost doubled every single year, just about, in the early years. Obviously, it hasn't doubled recently, but that's still pretty impressive and pretty incredible. That's a really good sign for, again, a fitness studio that early on in the pandemic last year, they were not able to open. No gyms were able to open for a long time, so you could not open a new franchise, and the franchisees had to basically, hold off on having customers, and they had to sustain, those losses. So we'll look into the financials too. That's actually where we're going to start. So I have a few interesting points about this S1, including, to start, the financials. So, as we can see, the year ended in 2020. They were up in revenue for the franchise, but equipment and merchandise, they were down. And so that led to a loss between the 2 years, like a decrease between the 2 years, between that 2019 and 2020. So in 2019, they had almost $100 million in annual revenue, and then it slipped about $10 million to 82 million in 2020. And even this is not a good sign, but you can see that for the first 3 months of 2021, they were still significantly behind basically when the pandemic started in 2020. So year over year, compared to prior year period, they did not recover. Let's just say that. Which also makes sense because by March of 2021, we were still just barely getting our older folks in this country vaccinated. So that's a huge deal. And obviously, their expenses, they had a loss, an even bigger loss in 20. So they had decreasing revenue and increasing loss of net income. So there was a bigger net loss in 2020 than there was in 2019. They were on the track to profitability, and then the pandemic just happened. So this is definitely a company that is a victim, a casualty of the pandemic. They would have soared probably in 2021 and had a really good 2020 if it hadn't been for the pandemic, and just like 2021, a slower reopening, as far as gyms goes, and people feeling comfortable to go back and working out in group classes and stuff like that in person. So this is different, and you can definitely see that this company is just it couldn't have been hit at a worse time. They're growing and they are still pretty new to all of this. So anyway, let's look at the balance sheet. They actually have had a strong balance sheet even as of March of 2021. And they do have a substantial, look at this, total liabilities. That had to go up because they have to service debt in order to, sustain the business without, because they had, a $22 million loss, but you have to make up for that somehow to sustain the business and keep it growing and keep it from dying. So they had, from 2019 to 2020, look at that amount of, liabilities, and they've even increased it more in 2021. That's not good at all, but it makes sense. Like, They had to do it. They really, really had to do it, and that's just part of the pandemic if you wanted to survive. So they actually go through like what the impact of COVID was. And studios open as a percentage of total studios for the 15 months ended March 31st, 2020. So they go through, like, look at this. This is pandemic. Yeah, summer it started to open up a bunch of things, if you wore a mask, but still at capacity limits, and just people overall not feeling comfortable probably, and it's slowly starting to grow. So this is a positive. I would say the first 3 months of 2021, it's a positive to see it growing to, even in March, its highest. Um, so that's good to see. That's good to see it's basically coming back. Um, let's see what I'm trying to find the debt, because there was a whole portion of this S1 um, that went over the debt that they had to sustain because of the pandemic. Let's go through and let's see the cost, the net loss, and the revenue. So this is actually a good place to start too. Um, the franchise revenue is actually really strong, obviously, in the US. And they actually do sell quite a few overseas. Like, look at that, 676 sold in Australia and the rest of the world. That's pretty crazy. That's a good number. That's a good mix as far as adding. They increased 14% in the U.S. and the rest of the world 31%. So that's good. It just goes to show that they're still selling the franchises. These are still valuable, and they're still valuable, to franchisees to hold on to and try to not just shed it because of the pandemic. It would have been a lot easier to shed your business and just drop your franchise rather than continuing to hold and continuing to own, even at a loss. And I'm not sure, again, we're going to find it right now, but a loss on the business overall. So let's see where the debt is. Again, I had found it earlier in here. Let's see. So total franchises sold as of the period end, in 2020, they ended with 2244, and by the end of Q1 2021, this actually isn't that good. To see that they had only increased by 3 in 2021 Q1. We don't want to see that. We want to see a lot more than that. So again, COVID had its impacts, and it really negatively affected the business model of F45. So anyway, I can't find it, but you know what? We'll just go straight into this guy right here, Mark Wahlberg. He's the last one that I wanted to touch on, which is he is a huge owner and influencer of F45. So F45 has, Mark Wahlberg, who's 50 years old, as a director. He's basically a board member, and he does not get paid like money by F45, but he does get paid in stock. He was paid in stock by F45, and he actually owns, if I can find it down here, which again I had it before, he does not get paid money, cash from them, but he does get paid in stock, and he owns a total of about 4.6% of F45. So because Mark Wahlberg owns 4.6% right here, right here, 4.6%, he owns 1.3 million shares. That's crazy. So what's happening here is today the company was valued at about $1.8 billion when it was set to open um, on the stock exchanges. So with that being said, it means that Mark Wahlberg, when it opened on paper, and I'm sure there's a lockup period, but on paper, his value of his shares would be about $82 million. That's $82 million for owning 4.6% of this company. So that's pretty crazy. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know if you like this segment. If you want me to do more reviews on S1s, I promise I'll be better organized next time, and I'll see you later.